we all have spiritual abilities. I
Okay.
believe that they're hardwired in us because I've been training people for many years in intuitive healing.
Mhm.
And I've never had one, even people who had never done it before and were so convinced they had no magic in them. It's really easy to unlock it because it's who we are. And we were kind of conditioned to believe that magic wasn't real and nothing that we could see with our eyes. If you can't see it with your eyes and put it in under a microscope, it doesn't exist. But even that is a new convention. That's only the last couple hundred years, post scientific revolution that humanity started believing that. But all of our ancestors were dialed in to the spirit world at some point before all the brainwashing happened.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Messages from Beyond. I'm your host, Orly Alteras. Join me as we decipher signs, synchronicity, and the language of spirit. Let's begin. Hi, Corinne.
Hello.
I'm truly excited that you're here today. I'm really looking forward to exploring with you. This week has been a little difficult for me because I am from Israel. I wanted to start asking you certain questions, but I feel like just in this moment, because I experienced one of your classes where you just speak to this place of people, and it doesn't matter from, which side, but especially people who have experienced trauma, whether in the past or all the religion that has to come up with, over centuries and decades. I know that we're at a time right now where we're having in our physical reality two and beings that are suffering on both ends. Many of these innocent people don't have the power because there is someone else making choices.
Mm.
And where I feel like, where's humanity? Where's the compassion? The healing that needs to take place. I remember specifically being in one of your classes and you truly speak of, I mean, you talk about religion, and I want to touch on this place of mysticism, where we see it over time, and where that kind of, to tie it to this conversation, where perhaps it's being misused in a sense or misunderstood. So maybe we can, just from having an open-hearted conversation, try to get into that a little bit. You
Yeah.
explained it so beautifully. Let me make it more clear in terms of mysticism throughout the ages.
Mhm.
Okay. There are truths that are present and truths that have changed over time, I think. Truths that have changed over time because of where you lived in the context of where you lived. But there is
Mhm.
something greater than us here. There is an aspect that is unseen in our reality.
Mhm.
So maybe you can touch on, to start off with, where for you did you first experience that there is more to life than meets the eye? And then perhaps tie that into where it over time, over decades,
Yeah.
we've seen that thing that everyone is talking about, but everyone is putting their, the religion is kind of tied into that aspect.
Yeah. Well, the religion has hijacked the truth, I think, and people have gotten confused over what the origins of religion was always a mystical experience, always a mystical experience, or a straight up lie, depending on which path, who founded the path. So, yeah, mysticism is ancient. And, when I first encountered the reality of spirit, not the belief system, but the actual experience of it, that changes someone because before all of that, it's all theory. And most people are working their religions based on tradition and theory, but not an actual connection. And so I think that's where the dangers started happening. And that's where things got off track. Well, obviously, it's also colonization, power, and the wealthy elite and the church that kind of took things off track even further. But, I can talk about that for hours, so I'm going to try and pull myself back there. But I had a mystical experience with angels. That's where it started. And through that experience such profound love and just a whole heart, mind, body change that it took me into inquiry over the last, I guess, decade, a little over a decade. So And, when that happened and I identified the beings that was making contact with me as angels, I went into queries like, why on earth are they talking to my ass?
Mhm.
Because I am not a religious person and so imperfect, right? And so I didn't understand why I witnessed, like, why would they bring a miracle to me? Like, why would I see that? And why am I undergoing this big spiritual love revolution? Because I could all of a sudden feel spirit, and it wasn't a belief system anymore. It was just obvious, no matter how much I rejected it and pretended. I tried to pretend for a little while that it wasn't happening, but it was profoundly happening. And so, yeah, over the years, trying to wrap my mind around my identity, I realized I'm a mystic. I was born, mystics are born. They're not created.
Mm.
We're born this way. We're a little off. We see things differently. There's this there's this other inquiry that's happening that just doesn't happen in some people, but all religion, all spiritual thought comes from the same vibration. And depending on the culture and the region that it's spurring, that it's like seeds sprouting from the earth, depending on what those seeds are sprouting from is going to change just the language. But the fundamentals are there at its core. So yeah, I just discovered the mysticism is the path for all of us. And in relationship with, if you want to be in relationship with spirit, some people believe they're in relationship with spirit because they were taught to be in relationship in a certain way. Like you go to the temple, you go to the church, this is what you do your things every week or whatever, but there's not heart in there. There's not the love, the profound love. So I don't think people understand, probably because the feminine aspects have been subjugated to oppression. The mystical nature was subjugated to oppression. And I believe that's because it was those things that were a threat to the crown or a threat to the papacy. And so let's make everything else demonic. Well, first of all, let's call everything else demonic so that when we go in conquest, we can just steal and just take lands because they are quote unquote enemies of Christ. And I just did my own podcast on that process because that was an actual doctrine that came out in 1455. And
I think can I ask something here?
sure.
Why do you think they took this knowledge or knowing, if they were aware, and turned it into a power? Where is that the human aspect coming into play?
I I
Um,
would say so. I would say so. It's the human and the tribe, right? It's the people in charge that want to maintain power. And they weaponize the ancient texts in order to have control of the people. So let's tell them that they have to be humble. Let's tell them that poverty is a good thing. Let's tell them talking to their ancestors is bad because that is a powerful practice and magical practice. And so even Christianity was founded on the traditions of magic and the earth. So yeah, I think it's the human because we know even people with, it's not just the religious, new age spiritual folks, shaman, they do the same thing. They weaponize their shit. And so that's when the human comes in and decides that they're better than everyone, they're supreme, and everyone should learn from them their way. And that's what, opens things up for things like, sexual abuse and cults and things like that. Yeah, if people don't have their heart plugged in and they're working from power, they can weaponize even their spiritual gifts. Because if we look at like John of God, if you've ever heard of him, he was a just incredible healer. He was healing people from cancer. People were flying in from all over the world because he worked with these spirit guides that were doctors. So he was kind of like a psychic surgery dude.
Mhm.
I mean, and doing great work and all along trafficking children, sexually abusing his whole
Mhm.
following. And it's no different. Priests do it too, because when you are in take a righteous position and people elevate you as a god, danger ensues.
Okay. Just gonna take that in for a second. I just am feeling that when we connect with the heart, with love, I mean, the
Yeah.
simple form of love and this divine energy that is with us, It's all love. When you spoke of your experience, I'd love for you to share a little bit of that experience because I do believe, as you probably do too, and we can go into that as well. When we experience something viscerally in our body, we know it to be true, right? There's one thing that when someone says like chocolate is chocolate and everyone knows it's chocolate, but there's another thing to actually taste it. And, it's like, how can I believe something? And for me, it's been an eye opener to always have this faith or wanting to believe in my heart, or this place of questions, asking all these enormous questions just as a kid, or having a knowing inside that, oh, we are eternal, and then finding out, no, we actually die. So this is my own personal experience, but then to actually experience something, which I also had, this is not, it's pretty recent, right? Um,
Mhm.
but then to realize, and then your whole, like, my mind went like, oh my gosh, right?
Mhm.
Why isn't everybody doing this, experiencing this? Why have we lost the language of spirit?
Yeah.
How come we're not teaching this to our kids? So I'd love for you to, first of all, share in words your mystical experience. I know that just because, firstly, I believe also that when we share these experiences, we can help others, first of all, believe that it can happen to them as well and that it's possible. Like we're opening up the mind to the
Yeah.
possibility. But
Yeah.
then and then we can also talk about how everyone experiences the divine differently, perhaps. So I'd love to talk about that too. But first, I'd love to hear your experience.
Yeah, well, I mean, I struggled with depression for most of my life, and I mean, it's pretty bad. I was going through a really intense, particularly intense patch. And a friend of mine bought me an angel reading at the time, and she didn't know what I was going through, but I went anyways. And this woman was an angel healer, so I was like, sure, why not? Because I've always been open-minded, but I don't take any specific stance. So yeah, I mean, she started dropping the mic with what she was saying and she didn't know me, but she was, definitely pulling up some information that's really specific. And she did a little healing, and then I could feel lighter at the end of that. And she said, "You have a lot of angels with you, and they want to talk to you. So just after today or after you leave, start talking to them and ask them to show you if they're real." So they did. I started talking to them, and then, you know, started seeing a lot of synchronicities, a lot of angel stuff flying in my face, like laundry trucks with I remember a laundry truck that said Angels Cleaning Service, with big ass wings on the side of the truck. And lots of things like that happened over the next series of days. So my favorite thing to do is wake up and be like, okay, angels, let's play. But still, up to that point, it was still like, well, maybe I'm just making it up. I was still kind of doubting. And then about 3 days later, I was driving through the hood in LA because I worked with rescuing kids, as a therapist, psychotherapist, helping with kids and, gang kids and all that stuff. So I was driving through one of those neighborhoods and a bird dropped from the sky and landed right in front of my car. And I was like, what the hell? Because it was just like big plump. And so I hit the brakes and I start driving around and my heart swelled with love and compassion. And I felt so bad for this birdie. And I didn't know what to do because I'm not a bird expert. And I didn't want to get out of the car, in that neighborhood. So I asked the angels to take it out of its suffering, and I apologized to the bird, and I'm just giving it all this love. I keep driving around, I keep sending it some prayers, and I look in the rearview mirror, and I noticed the bird start. And when I looked at the bird, it had a broken wing. It was kind of flapping around in circles, trying to get back up, but I could see the wing was mangled. And so yeah, I kept watching the bird, and as I watched the bird, it started doing a weird kind of shimmy on the ground, and one I saw a tiny bird jump up from the body of that bird and fly away, and then a second bird do the same thing, jump up from the body of that bird, fly away, and then a third jump up from the body of that bird, fly away, and what was left on the ground was nothing. So I decided okay, I'm gonna have to just really get out of the damn car because that was crazy. So I get out of the car, I look at the ground, and the bird's gone. So I witnessed the bird
Wow.
transform into 3 healthy birds and fly away. And not just that, I could feel the presence of something. I felt this incredible love and just chills, like tingles and static. And that was the moment that took it out of, well, maybe I'm just making it up. Maybe it's just a coincidence into holy shit, like literally, holy shit, right? And this is real. And that day is really what changed things. And that was just the first miracle of a series of miracles. But I think the biggest miracle was how it changed me on the inside. So that's really how I know I wasn't also making
Yeah.
that up in my mind. Maybe it was just a hallucination from, a flashback from my early 20s or something. But it was the presence and also what changed in me that clued me in that angels were real. So I was like, if that is possible, what else is possible? Anything's possible after that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that because I also know, like like you had mentioned, you're a psychotherapist and you come from that background of, more of the mind, I want to say, where it's analytical more perhaps, or
totally. Yeah.
and yeah, and then I mean, and I remember in reading your book, I mean, you've written a few books, but there's Angel Wealth Magic, I have it here.
Yeah.
You had mentioned in the book that you were always spiritual, that you always had that you would actually walk. I remember for myself too, like walking into those little magic shops where there's candles, and so there has always been a part in you that's been mystical, I guess, but you kind of took the route of, I remember in the book you saying, like, you took the route of, studying and going into and becoming a psychotherapist, but you did have this aspect within you that kind of felt called or was intrigued by it, I would.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. We're born. The mystics are born. It's whether or not you're going to listen and let your culture put a smackdown on you.
Do you believe
Let you,
Yeah, do you believe,
yeah.
sorry, Corinne, that everyone is born a mystic? Because you had mentioned that before in the conversation, or
Yeah, we
that.
all have Yeah, we all have spiritual abilities. I
Okay.
believe that they're hardwired in us because I've been training people for many years in intuitive healing,
Mhm.
and I've never had one, even people who had never done it before and were so convinced they had no magic in them, it's really easy to unlock it because it's who we are, and we were kinda conditioned to believe that magic wasn't real and nothing that we could see with our eyes. If you can't see it with your eyes and put it in under a microscope, it doesn't exist. But even that is a new convention. That's only the last couple hundred years, post scientific revolution that humanity started believing that. But all of our ancestors were dialed in to the spirit world at some point before all the brainwashing happened.
Yeah. It's incredible, I think, and then when you are able to also experience it in 3D form, and then also cultivate and have the relationship and kind of see where that goes. I'm still, for me, that's why I was saying it was like this aha moment, like, why isn't everybody doing this?
Yeah,
Isn't
totally.
everybody using, I mean, it has to do with telepathic ability as well to communicate, that we communicate with each other. And that's just in general, when you see someone sad, you can tell how they're feeling. Eh, but when to be able to tune in and kind of also receive answers from a place that is from source. So,
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, why isn't everybody doing it? Well, we were indoctrinated to believe that it was evil and that it didn't exist. That's why. So I mean, but that's why I do what I do. I'm a lot more vocal than I used to be. I had to come out of my shell. But to me, it's life saving, life changing. And that is a testament that I get from all over the world from people who get dialed in and start at least experimenting, exploring like I did, just, "Okay, well, maybe angels are real. Let's try it."
so what is your mission, Corinne? What is like your true heart? What is it? What is calling you forward? And
Well, I think over time, it's helping folks make an authentic, visceral connection and relationship with spirit in whichever way, shape, or form it comes. So I started teaching about angels. I now teach about a lot of other things, ancestors, and working with the land, working with the first elder, which is the land. Um,
which I
and
will say, this is one of the courses I took with you where it was profound for me. I just want to share with you because I didn't get
oh,
but
great.
to go outside in nature, and you had us really be with the land and also say a prayer of, I'm sorry for what also the land, it's a spirit in itself, has gone through, and give an offering. And that whole ritual for me was mind blowing, opening, because for in doing that, for me, as an experience with a bird, for example, having a bluebird come the next day and literally sit at the doorstep outside and come so close,
Mm,
almost saying, I mean, so it truly brought, you know, just the spirit close. And I think part of it is also our awareness to, it's all awareness. It's our ability to see the magic beyond what is right here. It's to understand that there's a message that's trying to be relayed here. And when we can tap in to
yeah,
ask that bird, why are you here? What is the message? So for me, that,
exactly.
yeah. But then
Bec
also the angels sorry, I cut you off. I just had to share
Yeah.
that with what you're teaching is these beautiful tools on how we can connect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so passionate about it, especially now with the earth medicine, because it's easy to kind of keep our spirituality up in the ethers. But when we see that what is happening right here down on the ground is just as magical, and to just, our ability to see the world as alive, as nature as alive was also stripped away from us. And so it's important for me to help folks repair that damage because it is what sustains us. And it helps us thrive when we know we're outside doing prayers and that bird does come and you get a sense it's something special because our ancestors knew that birds weren't just birds. They knew that they were ancestors. They knew that it was their loved ones, that it was their family, that it was God speaking to them. But we forgot.
Yeah, so we're remembering how to communicate.
We're
And
remembering how to be human
yeah,
again.
yeah. Because in the question with the angels too, that's another thing that opened up for me is with the book specifically too with the angels. I have been with the information I started receiving and opening it up to, for me, it was a lot of Kabbalistic teachings. And it could be from my origins or where my family comes from. And so I was receiving from my guides have been Jewish prophets and that coming in for me. And when I
Mm,
started putting the pieces together, I was like, oh my gosh. And really then wanting to see the written word and seeing the angels and opening myself up to having a connection with them.
mhm.
Do you believe that we each can experience them differently, or is there a universal truth when connecting with the angels? What I mean by that is, and I'll try to make it more clear, I may experience an angel in a certain way, but I think for me it's been helpful to also know that there are certain, like, that's why I go back into the Bible because I want to know, if it's angel Raphael, that he's the angel of healing, right? There are certain like truths that have been known that again, because everyone is saying chocolate is chocolate, then we all know it's chocolate. But I also know that we all experience things a little differently. So if you could talk about that, do you believe that that how do you see this? Do we experience them differently, or are there those universal truths that come through when connecting with angels, just as an example?
Well, I think when we when you talk about experience, yeah, people do experience them differently because people have different faculties. Meaning some people are just more sensitive to vibes, to feeling. Some people they see light. Some people will hear the voice of God or whoever they're talking to. So when I'm training people in intuitive healing, I like to put the power in their hands and for them to learn to trust their own how it comes through, because how it comes through for me, I'm just not much of a rigid rule person, but I am a big believer in testing, trial and effort. Put your damn work in and you'll get results. If we want to just sit around and, read someone else's experience and take that as true, we lose something. Because again, we start disempowering ourselves and thinking that someone else has a better idea. Some people might have more experience, that's for damn sure. But teachers, whatever you're reading, consider it a door to be opened on your own and for you to discover on your own how your angels come through. I don't think that angels do belong to just one tradition or two traditions. I think that angels are universal, they're all over the planet, and they animate. and whichever way is conducive to whatever their culture can receive. So they're going to come through and whatever vision you need at the time. Sometimes they will come through in scarier versions and then they'll tone it down. Maybe
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Because thank you. Thank for putting that in words because I think when you get to experience it for the first time, you have these ideas in your head of what it might feel like, right? I had always this idea of, oh, what is it to speak to your spirit guides, like hearing from other teachers. And until I was able to experience it for my own, on my own, and truly um, know what that means for me, that it was opening up and to believe it. Okay, this is, I have my own way of experiencing it. I'm also
Mhm.
experiencing similar things. So that's where it was like, oh, right. That I can receive the information in many different ways, whether it through my mind's eye or I can hear or I can sense, right? This is like the clairs, if we talk about it in like the
Exactly.
terms again that have been put labeled on what that is.
Mhm.
Um, um, and in terms of the experience of holding something that's beyond explanation, that I can't explain, but I know that this is something more. This is just a spiritual experience that I am having. Let me just gather my thoughts for a second, because you just stated it so beautifully in that we all have our way of connecting. I think we all also have different gifts, right? We all have different
Mhm.
gifts in the way of receiving this information. So the way it may look for me is different than it does for you. I think for me, my nervous system wasn't able to yet experience in physical reality. So they've been showing up for me in a way that I can accept it and kind of hold space. For example, and I'm wishing and I'm asking them always to show me more. I'm ready to receive more. I think that maybe that's part of the process. But for me, for example, I had an experience recently of seeing a blue being within a person. And we all, there's some people who can see auras, there's some people who
Mhm.
can sense these things in a different way. And there's no question here. I'm just sharing with you my experience of I ask also, how can I see more? Do you there yeah, no question here. I just want to share that it may be different for every person, as
Yes.
you said.
It is different for
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah.
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 But
I mean,
again, is
there's some
there's yeah.
similarities. There are some
Right, that's what I
similarities,
wanna
but
touch
not
on. Mhm.
yeah, not everybody. But there are I mean, how they come through is different, but yeah, sometimes there are definitely similarities. People will have a shared experience, like when we do invocations as a collective in my intuitive or psychic groups, when we ask for feedback on what people experienced, a lot of people will kind of sometimes say similar things, but maybe they're putting the sound together and the other person's feeling it. And I mean, but yeah, you can notice these universals, but we're at such a beautiful time on our planet where we get to be children re-exploring again with open ears and eyes and being curious about each other's experiences without subverting our will of right and wrong. No, that must not have been Archangel Michael because you didn't feel the heat. That's just stupid. Yeah, I think we, if you, we
Or
want to,
or putting disbelief in people that it doesn't, right? This is, ourselves being able to open up ourselves to what we've forgotten again, to that
yeah,
experience that it
exactly. I mean, we're here to play, and if we really want to engage in a powerful relationship with spirit, you have to be willing to play, and you have to be willing to play on your own terms. People, there's all kinds of gargoyles out there. People don't understand. Not everybody's designed for this work, but each of us as individual souls has a obligation to follow our paths, to follow our curiosities, to follow our joy. Because if we don't, quite simply, we just live like a corpse. We're just breathing corpses, just fitting into everyone else's box and wanting something to be different, but not willing to take the steps.
Thank you. For you then, how does synchronicity come into play? Because again, not walking around as corpses, but noticing that there is an energy here that's greater than us, that's guiding us, that can help us, that for me, it comes through in synchronicity. So I'm
Mhm.
asking you, what has your experience been? What are synchronicities? What does that mean? Or how do we tap
I
into
think
this?
it's a primary way it's one of the ways that spirit communicates with us. And I mean, that's it. I mean, because spirit it doesn't always just kind of chime in our ear or, hand us a sandwich and say, "Hey, let's go sit down for coffee and it's more subtle. So we have to learn how to reimagine what a modern prophet would be doing, which is asking queries, asking a question, and then actually being willing to receive the answer without trying to figure it out. So a lot of people are just out there trying to freaking use their brain power. I'm going to go read all the ancient texts and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Now, I love the ancient texts, but that's again, it's good brain candy. It's good for understanding and wisdom, but it's not going to give you the heart activation. And so the heart activation comes through relationship. And so, yeah, synchronicities is one of the ways you ask a question and then be willing to receive the answer. Slow down long enough, open
Can
your
you
eyeballs. I
thank
feel
you.
like
Can you
synchronicities are happening all the time.
all
We're
the
it
time.
it just, we're just not dialed in and we're not being intentional.
Can you explain a little bit about really dive into what a synchronicity is, and then if you can also share, Corinne, some other ways to connect.
Okay, so you want me to say what a synchronicity is?
Yes, to
Oh,
explain to
okay.
those who are really starting on their spiritual journey and wanting to understand the language of spirit. I didn't
Yeah.
mention in the beginning yet that this is truly for those who are already maybe more on their path and those who are just starting out who want to understand how spirit communicates with us.
Yeah,
Uh,
just simply put, spirit communicates through symbol. It's through symbol, so that's why oracle cards, tarot can be so potent and powerful if you really learn how to read those or like receive images and contemplate them. And dreams, dreams is another little landscape for symbols to emerge. So your soul, our souls communicate through symbol. So learning how to slow down and, not everything's going to be written in fine, in black and white print, but reimagining what it's like to be as a child again, being curious about, wow, that flock of birds just flew over right when I asked something. And so what does that mean? And we have this experience, although, I have a retreat center up in Mount Shasta. And so I kind of engage people in that way as far as being curious about what is happening as you're praying and what could that mean when a flock of geese flies by right when we're saying this thing. And I actually was doing an opening ceremony. I was touching the land, and the land was telling me, just make sure, to tell everybody to watch the skies, watch the birds, and, that they hear your prayers. And like a second after I said that, a flock of geese came. And then another one and another one. There's like hundreds of geese all of a sudden. And she said, that's how you know we're real. We respond. We hear you. We're not just alive, we're conscious and we respond to you. So pay attention. So synchronicities are a manifestation of that.
Thank you. In your in Do you have other ways, I mean, again, to explain how we connect with spirits? For me, a big thing was speaking out loud, right? It was the first time where I had realized, okay, if I speak out loud, all of a sudden it opened up for me. So that has been a big
Yeah,
part of
that's great.
actually speaking out loud. Is there something that you feel like sharing, Corinne, today, just in this moment in time as we're speaking? I believe that we're at a time where compassion, like my heart is breaking with everything that's happening, that I'm in the place of compassion, of just like we communicate is to again communicate with each other, to come close to each other. Um, I'm just curious if there's something that you're feeling called to share in this moment in time. How can a person bridge between the physical and spiritual realm when they're starting to open up again?
So I think the number one is, first of all, realizing you already are that bridge. It's nothing that you have to learn how to become. We are we're vessels from spirit. Something I want to say is a lot of our thoughts aren't even ours. We're channels when we're channeling all the time. And depending on what channel we're tuned into, we're dialing the shit channel or the love channel or the beauty channel. And some of us are dialed into the skepticism channel. And so if we know that we are fluid beings and we can just decide, I want to become conscious of the fact that I'm already a bridge between heaven and earth, if that's their curiosity. So that's one thing. That's just a simple mind shift, but already contemplating that and saying, show me how I am already a bridge between being a conduit for heaven and earth. Another thing is learning how to trust what you receive. One of the fundamental problems that people have that I find is having confidence that they're receiving the truth. And that's a good thing, actually. Always doubt on some level. But the only way to test things out is to do them, to follow the wisdom that you're receiving. That's how you build trust. You have to do stuff in order to know if you're on point.
Okay. And then a question is, why do this? Why do this work? What does it give us when we connect to this place, to spirit, to what does it give us? Because we could move about our life just doing our everyday and, going about things, just following, what do you think this helps? What does it help us when we do this, when we connect with?
Well, I feel like it helps dial us into becoming channels of our own soul's channel. And because so many of us are living out other people's rules, other people's lives, those lives that they had in store for us. And that includes like the culture telling us what woman is, telling us what mom is, what man is. And until you know who you are, you will be everyone else's punk. And so this totally, for me, has helped me become myself. And that to me is what the game is about, becoming yourself so fully that there is no doubt that's why you're here. And though we are undefinable, I find when you look at all the masters, enlightened masters, there's one thing that they have in common, and that is they were themselves for sure. They were rebels, they revolted, they spoke out, they said awkward things, they were bold, courageous, they did everything the opposite, essentially, of what society was deeming was appropriate. So we can continue to hide and pretend that we're average, or we can allow ourselves to be ourselves, strip away the old damn masks that we're wearing, and be willing to your pride to be hit. Take a hit. Let your for me, like, what I felt was downgrading from a psychotherapist to someone who talks about angels. It's a really weird transition, you know? So stripping away those masks are so important. So to me, it's not, something that really is a pet peeve of mine is when people think of this work as new age or just supportive. It's not supportive. It is what brings us back to life from a sea of corpses, truly. And when I say corpses, it's not to be mean, but there's people with zero vitality. They're literally going through the motions because they're not plugged into the river yet. And they think they are, but they're not plugged into the river because when you get plugged in, there's no doubt. You could give a shit. You could give a shit what people think. You're just going to do you.
Yeah. Thank you. I think, for myself, knowing also who I am and coming into that now more and pushing away the things. No, I know this for me. I know who I am because of, growing up and wanting to be a certain, where there's so much influence of parents, of, truly finding who you are and then letting that light shine.
Yeah, I mean, it's risky. You people can lose family members over just saying that they love talking to an angel, okay? That's how ridiculous things are. But in this body, you got one chance. One chance. And that's something in working with ancestors and working with the spirits who stand at the threshold of life and death. They're like, "Are you gotta be kidding me, right? It's not even a choice. Like, you shouldn't even work like, we're here to do this thing all the way." And so many people are half-assing their lives, holding back,
Mm.
and most of it is just projecting their fear on what might happen if someone finds out. They're building this conspiracy theory about, "Oh, well, this could happen, and I could lose my job, I could do that." Okay, fine. Stay in your prison if that's where you wanna be. Because the land of the free lives on the other side of that, and you find your people, and spirit will take care of you if you're coming from the heart And like for me, when I started making my moves, shifting my whole thing, my whole life, my relationships, and how, I mean, people couldn't even believe what the hell was going on. Neither could I, you know,
Mhm.
but I didn't do it in an angry way. I wasn't attacking. I wasn't even defensive about the choices I was making. I was like, yeah, I know it's ridiculous. It's crazy. I know. But,
Mhm.
it makes me happy. It
Right,
just lights me up. I'm just going to
right.
have to do it. Sorry if you think I'm evil. My
Mhm.
bad. But, going to do it anyway. So if we
Yeah.
kind of approach things, quit getting so gosh darn defensive about who we are, because the second you defend yourself, you put yourself in a disempowered place. So anytime you catch yourself having to defend yourself, just stop the conversation, you know?
Wow.
It's nothing to defend.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
mean, unless you're actually causing harm to people, you gotta draw the line somewhere. But most people I know are just seeking love. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think for me also, just you saying the word crazy, for instance, it was that for me growing up, I was so afraid that I would be thought that I'm crazy, that maybe this is crazy. And what that means, I've had all these thoughts, I have all these experiences. This is not crazy. So for me, it's really about truly coming into sharing that experience, to be able to say out loud, this is the work that I do, right? This is what I do, whether you believe it or not. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know it sounds crazy, huh? Yeah.
I know the more
It is.
actually people also have experienced it just with spirit, what I do is I mostly communicate with loved ones who have passed. I'm saying that because there's evidential, like you said, you went to that angel, the woman who um, gave, there's evidence where like,
Mhm.
how can a person know this information, right? And the
Mhm.
more people have experienced that for themselves, then they start to open up to knowing that there is something here beyond, right? There is something here that there's evidence that can be given. And so then it's not so crazy anymore. And for me, I think when I started putting the pieces together and saying, okay, this is not just my imagination, this is not just my thoughts, this is actually, there's communication here that's happening.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah.
all about, look, I'm not a blind faith kind of person. I'm way too rational for that. So I believe what I know. That's it. If I experience it over and over again, if my clients have experienced it over and over again, this is through years of trial and error. There's no doubt. But yeah, people who disbelieve is because they haven't really spent any time experimenting,
Right.
is the bottom line. That's
Right,
it.
right, right. Which is, I think, for me, it's been a calling to allow people to just even allow themselves to experience something
Yeah,
different, or
yeah,
to
totally.
explore, or to
It's so
say and
fun.
question and be like, "Oh, did that? Is that does that
Yeah,
mean something else? Like, why am I seeing this
totally.
right now?"
Mhm.
I appreciate so much this conversation, Corinne. I feel, kind of giving me more grounding me in this truth in terms of destiny. And then we'll end with it. In terms of destiny, do you think that there is something that's already set in stone when we're coming into our human form, or we have free will? How much is it free will? How much is divinely guided? Is it all divinely guided? What are your thoughts on free will and
Yeah, I think it could be a little of both. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I do feel like, we were doing something before we came into these bodies. Sometimes, I've run into people who have big lessons that they're going to learn over and over again. It's like they're going to become masters of something, so that if they're master of something, that means they're going to have a lot of the opposite happen. If you're a master of freedom, you're gonna have to go through a lot of oppression before you become a master of freedom. I do feel like we have these things that we're going to crack the code on, but how we do that is totally up to us. And I do believe in choice. I don't think everything is predestined. I think we came here to create and to learn and to just have fun learning. And from a soul perspective, part of the fun is the devastation. Part of the fun is experiencing these deep feelings and getting to navigate them and to go deeper, to make our commitments even deeper into understanding, a deeper commitment to wisdom, a deeper commitment to compassion, to love. They're all opportunities
Yeah. Thank you. And then there's a lot of also talk around, and I wrote this down. I just want to ask in regards to this. People say everything is a hologram of what we experience inside. So what you're experiencing inside is projected outward, and that's what you may experience. What are your thoughts on that? In because I do think that when we change our perspective, what we experience outside of ourselves can change. If I yeah, just things can change if I'm changing from within. So just your
Mhm.
thoughts on that, on that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're all connected, and yeah, we do definitely project, and based on what we're projecting, that's what we're gonna experience and see, because it could be the same situation, and there's so many different opinions about what it is. Something I wanna say, though, is humans have a unique ability to project their own will onto the world as far as to see what they want to see as opposed to the actual truth, which is why so many people are disconnected from spirit because we stopped seeing it. We imposing our will. Well, it's all bullshit. So that they're not seeing it. Those of us who pull back those projections and decide that we want to see the truth, start seeing things differently. That includes all of the world events. And we have to stop listening to people and going down dark rabbit holes, QAnon rabbit holes per se. Those kinds of things are just signing up to get hijacked down someone else's dark rabbit hole.
Mm,
And so yes, we can change. I do a lot of plant medicine ceremony, and people, you know, when I'm leading and facilitating those groups, people have massive instant perspective shifts on their worst situations
mm.
and receive such deep healing. So, yeah, we have a projector on the inside, and life is whatever film you're playing, but it has nothing to do with reality most of the time until you pull it back and come from the heart.
Okay. Thank you. I think that kind
Yeah.
of brings me back to the beginning, you know, coming back to the heart and peeling back the layers. In Kabbalah, they talk a lot about peeling the layers.
Yeah. The heart,
There's yeah, go ahead.
the heart's teachings, that's where we all need to be. I think the last couple thousand years is even though they talked about the heart, they were mostly wrapped up in the head. And there's real teachers of the heart, will once we understand where our heart is and what it actually is and what it actually does, and we take steps to reopen it, things get really clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's love and opportunities for love. Mm.
Thank you. I appreciate that message because, yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah,
The humanity, that's where humanity comes into place of
yeah.
compassion, love, seeing the other, putting,
Compassion, love, and I know I'm not a pacifist. I don't believe in passive. I'm just gonna stay back and pray for everybody. I think more and more people need to learn that the heart's teachings is not about being passive. It's about showing up with courage and using your voice and anything that's not love, handling that shit.
thank you, Corin. I really appreciate that. I have no words. There are so many things you said. They're just, sinking in nuggets of wisdom, of truth. I will sum it up by saying, like, the more every person can experience, and I hope that we all get to experience coming into our truth, and for there to be also goodness in the world, because people can be unaware of where to truly find the essence of the heart is laid in goodness and not in evil. And
Yeah, goodness, inclusivity, acceptance, non-judgment, like all those basic principles that we all grew up, no matter where you're from, you know, they talk about it. They don't always do it, but like those basic principles, it gets real easy, so much easier when your heart is handled. Well,
yeah. Okay, do we have one time for one last question in terms of
sure.
okay, thank you. In terms of where do you see humanity going? Where are your dreams and wishes for us?
Well, overarchingly, humanity has no choice but to move towards love. And sometimes it's a treacherous road to get there. So I think we're in the middle of a treacherous road. And I think that we as a collective have to choose which side we're going to be on. We're going to be in love or we're going to be bury our head, pretend like it's not our problem when really it is. And but over time, humanity will move towards love, but more of us have to commit to it and actually take steps to be there and to be witness to the love. I have experienced extraordinary moments with fellow humans over the last couple years post COVID. I know that there is a new sheriff in town as far as new ability for humans to connect and to see each other and to receive each other's medicine in new loving ways. So the guardian of Eden is here, and it's something that we can contemplate and something that we need to commit to bringing in as far as, holding down the space to for people to open up their hearts again, because the devastation we see on the planet is just generations of trauma. They're behaving badly because of generations of trauma, right? Nobody's fault fundamentally what you got in your DNA, but you're going to act it out until you get wise and until we start voting in leaders that know how to lead
Mhm.
from the heart, not from power.
Thank you, Corinne. I appreciate that. I have no words. I don't know. I just wonder, for those listening, where can people find you? I'll put it obviously in the show
Yeah.
notes and everything, but where can people find you? And
CorinGrillo.com. And then also, and it's Grillo with Grilo. It's CorinGrillo. Um, com or Instagram, Facebook. Those are kind of the main places I hang out.
do you have something specific you are doing now? I know this might go out maybe even a month from now, but
I am kicking off the Angel Alchemy Academy where I teach people how to deepen into their own intuitive power and healing power, how to deepen their relationship with angels, ancestors, their own soul. And so I'm starting that in January. So yeah, that's coming up. But I always have little things on my website. You can always
yeah.
find whatever I'm doing there.
I know. Doing a lot. I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm so grateful that I was able to find you and for you to guide me. I say, guide me home or guide me on my path of discovering the magic that is in this world. So thank you so much. Thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank
for
you.
being
Thanks for having me on, Orly.